Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Classic Comics. So let's talk about Godzilla Kong New Empire. I will try to avoid spoilers, but I will get into spoilers later. I'll warn you ahead of time. I'll just start with saying, wow, this movie may be the dumbest thing ever made. It is so ridiculous and so over the top. It verges on being MST3K worthy. It's that ridiculous. Now, having said that, I actually enjoyed the movie, if only because I was laughing at how absurd it all is. This movie leans very much into the old school Showa era of Godzilla films. The action is over the top, the human characters are an afterthought, and the story piles one nonsensical plot point on top of another into this movie to the point you can only shake your head and just roll with it. In many ways, it feels like a live action cartoon. These colossal creatures are jumping around and sprinting like jackrabbits. Gravity seems to have no hold on them at all. It's interesting the direction that the Monsterverse has taken over time. When that Godzilla movie was first released back in 2014, it was taking a very serious, very sober approach to the character, to the point that the movie was a bit dull, in my opinion. In fact, the focus of the film was more on the human characters played by Bryan Cranston, Elizabeth Olsen, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, and others. Then, with the first Godzilla vs. Kong movie, it went into a more popcorn movie direction. More monster fights, more over the top action. The humans were still having significant roles, but with this latest movie, any pretense of trying to create engaging characters is pretty much out the door. Now, I'm not complaining necessarily. I don't need some compelling human drama in my giant monster movie. But I can't help noticing how the Monsterverse has really seemed to change direction. The performances are okay. The characters fulfill the roles that the plot has for them, but there's really not much there beyond them providing exposition so that we, the audience, can understand what's happening. Now, it may seem like I'm dragging this movie, but I actually really enjoyed it. It's a crowd pleaser in the sense that it gives you what you want to see in a kaiju movie. There's lots and lots of hot monster on monster action in this one. In fact, this movie has so many monster fights, I'm not even sure how many there were, but they're all pretty well done for the most part. There were like 7 fights, maybe? Okay, so now I'm going to get into spoilers here, so you've been warned. Much like the previous Godzilla vs. Kong movie, Kong is the focus of this, and Godzilla is really more of a supporting character. The movie starts with Kong down in the hollow earth and Godzilla is up on the surface. And there's this bizarre subplot with Kong having a toothache, seriously. And he goes up to the surface to get dental care from Monarch, and I'm not even kidding about that. Now, while that's going on, Godzilla fights Scylla, a giant spider creature that was in Godzilla King of the Monsters briefly, and then goes up to the Arctic and fights this sea monster called Tiamat. Now, Tiamat absorbs electromagnetic energy, I think they said, and has this kind of pinkish glow. Now, after Godzilla kills Tiamat, he absorbs her energy, I think, and that's why his atomic breath is pink in the movie. I think that's the reason. Anyway, while that's going on, Kong goes back into the hollow earth after he gets his tooth fixed, and he's ambushed by these other apes. He defeats them, and then he makes the young ape take him to the home of these other apes. Kong discovers a tribe of apes ruled by this other ape called the Scar King for some reason. Now, Kong fights him, and then the Scar King has this crystal, and he uses this crystal to control another Titan called Shimo, who has frost breath that the apes keep imprisoned. And the Scar King has Shimo attack Kong, and Kong has to retreat. Now, while all that was going on, the human characters, which includes that female scientist from the last movie, I forget the actress's name is Rebecca something or other, I think. And then there's that deaf girl, Gia, who's from Skull Island, and she could communicate with Kong, through sign language in the previous Godzilla vs. Kong movie. So they go into the Hollow Earth and they find a lost civilization and realize that these are Gia's people. They're related to the natives of Skull Island. So it turns out these natives worship Mothra, and there's a version of Mothra there, but is hibernating or something, and they need Gia's help to awaken Mothra. And this was a big surprise. I had no idea Mothra was going to be in this. So then Kong shows up, and how he found this lost city that he's never been to before, I mean, who the hell knows? But he just shows up out of nowhere. And Kong tells them through Gia that there's a threat coming because the Scar King and Shimo are approaching, and the Scar King is controlling Shimo with this crystal. So they send Kong up to the surface to find Godzilla and get him to bring Godzilla back to help fight the Scar King and Shimo. So Kong emerges in Egypt, and then he and Godzilla start fighting. But then Mothra shows up and gets Godzilla to cooperate. Then they go back into the Hollow Earth, and there's this brief fight where the Scar King and Shimo fight Kong and Godzilla in zero gravity. I mean, I'm really not giving you any really good idea of how ridiculous this movie is. So they go back to the surface, emerging in Rio, and they have the big final fight with Kong and Godzilla and Mothra fighting Shimo and the Scar King. And they manage to destroy the crystal the Scar King was using to control Shimo. Then Shimo turns on the Scar King and freezes him. It all ends with Kong going back to the ape tribe with Shimo, and it ends there. And like I say, that really doesn't even give justice to how wild this movie is. It is absolutely nuts. And what's my favorite part? I don't know. Maybe it was Kong having dental surgery. Maybe it was the scene where Kong and Godzilla fight Shimo and the Scar King in zero gravity. Or maybe it was when Godzilla suplexes Kong. I'm not even kidding. Godzilla suplexes Kong at one point. So look, if you want monster fights, this movie delivers. I'll say that. It's loud, it's fun, and it's dumb as hell. And I had a good time watching it. If you go in with modest expectations and accept this movie for what it is, I think you'll have a good time for a couple of hours. I'll give it a thumbs up and say check it out. Let me know what you thought of Godzilla vs. Kong New Empire in the comments. And please like this video and sub to the channel and check out some of my other videos while you're here. And I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.